Okay, so I'm going to start as usual with a land acknowledgement. And we acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Lenni Lenape people. Someone asked me recently, where did this practice start and why do we do it? So, in trying to answer that question, I was doing a little research. So, for non Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous people of the land on which we work and live. Acknowledgement is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working toward honoring and inviting the truth. Although the modern practice began not too long ago, land acknowledgement is a traditional custom that dates back centuries in many Native nations and communities. And I encourage you to go to the Museum of the American Indian, part of the Smithsonian. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And that is a page that talks about land acknowledgement and also gives some other information. And of course, the museum is a great resource. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce Adrienne. Thank you for joining us, Adrienne. Adrienne Justice is equal parts artist and art educator. As community engagement manager, she oversees the Claymobile program by coordinating teaching artists in sites such as public schools, older adult centers, and community spaces to bring ceramics education to a vast and diverse audience. She joined the Clay Studio in this full-time staff position in 2021, just after receiving her master's degree in art education with an emphasis on inclusive practices from Moore College of Art. Her graduate research focused on how the crisis teaching practices of teaching artists during COVID-19 shaped the methods and approaches of general education as a whole. Many years of experience as a teaching artist for Claymobile residencies, the Clay Studio summer camp, and community events enabled her to bring familiarity with the Clay Studio and a passion for its mission to her role as community engagement manager. In addition to teaching for the Clay Studio, Adrienne has extensive teaching experience with local arts organizations, which taught her to consider all students' abilities, competencies, and personal points of view. Her teaching background includes running 3 weekly adult sculpture classes for adults who are blind or visually impaired and teaching a digital arts and literacy integration program within a nearby local school district. As an educator, Adrienne designs curricula with the same thought process she uses to create a body of artwork, making deeply felt connections that are both conceptual and concrete. Her own art education began in the field of ceramics with a BFA from Pratt Institute. In her home studio, she explores the comfort and discomfort of domestic spaces through stuffed, stitched, and pierced soft sculpture paired in installation with ceramic objects. Her work interrogates the process of aging as it relates to the body and the matriarchal duties of stewardship over domestic objects. That's so great.
Thank you.
What a great bio.
Thanks.
So, Adrienne, I want to start by asking you the question I ask everyone, which is how and why did you make the brave decision to make your life in art?
Yeah, I sometimes I don't think it's a decision because, to be honest, I've actually tried to pursue other fields and it just hasn't worked out. They haven't wanted me. So this is where I am. It's where I've always been, pursuing art in one way or another. I think I like during Lunch and Learn, a lot of times people bring up moments from their childhood that happened. And I did have one of those moments when I was a teenager. My parents sent me to a kind of like a pre-college program at Miami University in Ohio, and I took their painting course. And I had a moment maybe like 3 days in, spending all day in the studio for the first time. And I was like, I never want to live my life a different way. So that was kind of my turning point moment where I knew I would pursue making visual art in one way or another. And it wasn't out of the blue. I grew up surrounded by the arts. I was really a music kid and a dance kid for probably 14 years before I really figured out that I was more of a visual arts kid. With music and dance, it never really clicked. I didn't really show much talent there, but I also never wanted to let it go. So there's always something that's just keeping me in creative in the creative world, and also surrounded by teaching artists too. Always having a teaching artist in my life growing up was really important. And yeah, then I think my studio practice, I've always had one. It hasn't always been really easy for me to maintain a studio practice consistently. So I've gone through my adult life kind of going back and forth with where my studio practice fits in with my life, as with having a job and with having a child, and different things that I've had a hard time kind of balancing with studio work, which I think just naturally just doesn't want to be balanced. I don't think studio art wants to be balanced. So when I can, I make a lot of work in short periods of time. But I also kind of had another moment of pursuing the field of art in a different way. After I had my daughter, Poppy, I was applying for jobs and trying to kind of restart my career because I did stay home with her for a little while. And I got hired at Allen's Lane Art Center to teach the sculpture class that you mentioned for adults who are blind and visually impaired. And that was the first time that I had some real concentrated time teaching one group of people. And it was also the first time that I experienced learning from my students, learning a lot from my students. And that was another one of those moments like I had in the pre-college painting program where I was like, I never want to live my life a different way than this. And that's how I decided to pursue art education. I never considered myself a teacher before that. I don't really know why. But a lot of times as a studio artist, I felt like there was something missing that was a part of me. Like I had an inclination towards wanting to serve in a direct way. And I often thought a lot about social work and going into social work as a field. And when I was teaching that class, I realized that I didn't have to leave art behind to do that kind of service, and that it could be done through art and through what I already know. And what I didn't know was how much I would continue to learn as a teacher.
And that's what I think that's what can keep people from getting burnt out. I mean, it's not an easy job, but it's the kind of thing that you're constantly getting something in return.
Yeah.
When you were saying that you were always surrounded by a teaching artist in your youth, was that a parent or who was?
Yeah, it was. I always had a violin teacher.
Yeah.
Always. I was never without a violin teacher until I kind of couldn't fit it in anymore because I was doing, art club and National Art Honor Society and making props for theater, those kind of things. But I had a violin teacher since I was 4 until I was maybe 16 or 17.
So it was that consistency of, someone talking with you about something creative, and having that be a one-on-one, which I'm sure.
Yeah, and working with a working artist.
Right. And the value of that person as a teacher, that you can now kind of very naturally take on that role yourself and see the value of it because it was so important to you.
Yeah.
I know I often think about what people are saying in relation to myself, which I'm sure everybody does, but I also was in dance and band and loved both of those things, but didn't do them very well, in my own opinion.
Yeah, I was.
But it was important.
I was not excelling.
But it was like, it was okay to be in something that you weren't perfect at, which is another lesson.
Yeah, it was.
That allows people to sort of take risks and try something new.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you can't do it well right away.
Absolutely.
Or ever, maybe.
Yeah.
And the fact, so you're learning from your students. And I know that program at Allen's Lane was something that had been a long time established program. It was at the PMA for a long time. And
it was, yeah.
It's still going strong at Allen's Lane, where I will be on Friday. Our residents we're installing a show there. So that's a fun continuing.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Connection.
Yeah, the community that is that class at Allen's Lane is a lot of the same people from when it started, which is really, really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Decades, right?
Decades. Yeah. And sometimes they come to the clay studio too for
Yeah,
individual
we'll
classes.
have to keep that going. And then that, just ending on your comment about service, that's another thing that you feel like you're getting something back from your students, but also that feeling that you're making a difference is
Right.
what can keep you going through hard times.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, it's hard to, yeah, I don't know exactly how to word it. It's more, like, I just want to be in it with people. I think studio work can be so isolating in a lot of ways, or it's just, I think, like a bubble where, sometimes I'm doing a lot of studio work and I'm only talking to artists and I'm only thinking about kind of what's in my own head. So I think that it keeps me grounded to be involved in other parts of the community.
Mm.
And that's important to me. I mean, I love only talking to artists also. I love that.
Yeah,
But
it's good to have
yeah.
a balance. But it's about being in community with people,
Yes.
which I do
Yeah.
think is another reason why the Clay Studio is such a great place, because we are focused on offering a service, but also, cultivating community and giving back, but all in service of kind of strengthening the community that supports all of us together. I know I'm biased, but I think the Clay Studio is pretty great.
Well, I'm biased too.
Okay, so I noticed that Raymond said something about your candle burning, which I looked at and then noticed that it's sitting on a book. Somebody put on mute. There we go. Your Adrienne book, and that's a nice touch back there.
Oh yeah, my mom gave that to me a couple weeks ago. My mom's here.
Nice.
Renee.
Hi, Mom. Is that Adrienne, the fashion designer? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen with people so they can see your beautiful artwork, and you can tell us a little bit about that. And then we'll also do a little history of the Claymobile after we're done. There you are. All right. So tell us about this amazing thing.
Yeah, this piece is called Domestic Confinement. And I'll tell you about the objects first, because I started adding in objects that I don't necessarily make to my work, but that have a lot of significance. So the needle point in the middle was made by my grandmother's sister. And it's just in the same frame that my grandmother had it in, which is totally broken, which you can't really see. And the figurines were all used as decorations at my wedding. They were not wrapped. They were just spray painted, actually. A wonderful traditional ceramic practice of spray painting.
Were they like thrift store finds or?
Yeah, they were thrift store finds. We decorated our tables at our wedding with thrift store tchotchkes, I guess.
That's great.
So I'm putting them together and thinking about the home and objects that collect in the home, and or shelves that things get taken off of and left empty, or things get put on and kind of forgotten about, and relating that to the body and kind of the history of families in spaces. So the thing that I like most about exploring this piece is the wallpaper. A while ago, my mom had given me some cards that my grandmother and grandfather wrote back and forth to each other. And they're vintage cards, so they have these really beautiful, brightly colored prints on them. And they were kind of romantic and kind of silly. And so it had sort of this classic vintage looking pinup. And so I just digitized them and traced them in Illustrator, and I I altered a lot of the images and then created these wallpaper backgrounds with the cards. And it's really important to me that it's kind of representing a lot of relationships and homes in my family history. But at the same time, the wrapped figures are kind of my exploration of aging. As I think like traditionally with women, aging comes with a lot of concealing and a lot of hiding. And so this is kind of a collection of all of that.
I think maybe there's a close-up. I don't, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's leather or some.
Yeah, it's vinyl. Mm-hmm. It's really stretchy vinyl. I bought the vinyl ages ago and just hung on to it. The doily is the same vinyl. It's laser cut into a doily.
Yes, proving that I should hold on to all of the fabric pieces that I have, right? Validating
I know.
boxes of fabric that I'm hoarding.
Yeah, every artist is hoarding some sort of textile. I actually am notorious for throwing things away, but it's that textile bin that I cannot get rid of. And I don't know what it is.
I need it.
Yeah, I know. You're definitely gonna need it. Yeah, so this piece is called Belly. And I stretched the act of making it is not that comfortable. I stretched the vinyl like to its limit. It's almost starting to tear in some places. And then it's stuffed with all kinds of things I've been hoarding in the studio, but polyfill mostly. And then I sew through it after it's stretched, which is really difficult. I want it to be difficult. It's kind of it's kind of representing the idea of that part of aging where the body in clothes is uncomfortable. It's kind of like trying to zip a dress after motherhood and asking for help to zip it, and it's so hard and uncomfortable, and it's just exploring that sort of jarring feeling of the body changing. And again, like bringing it back to the home, I getting the frame around it was also really difficult. I really had to like shove the frame around it, which then changed the shape of it, and kind of solidified the shape, which was important to me for the content of the work.
What kind of, are those special sewing pins? I don't.
Yeah, they're sewing pins. I'm
From
not
this
sure what
picture,
to
I thought
say
they
about
were
them.
flower, like that you had created them as flowers,
Yeah.
but no.
No, I didn't make them. I found them. And I've worked with these types of pins a lot. I find them really appealing. And I also find them really feminine in terms of just thinking about, I know both my grandmothers had sewing practices, as a lot of women did in the past. And I like the object as just kind of this pretty little utilitarian object that holds fabric together. And then I'm using it here to kind of like conceal some of the tearing and also turn, what's being concealed into a decoration.
Yeah.
This is called Held. Yeah, this is the hands are cast hydrocal. I work with a lot of hands in a lot of my work. They're cast from a vintage doll mold. And it's the same vinyl that I used in this series. And then this is laser cut wood to make a bouffant, which was always my grandmother's hairstyle. And yeah, again, it's just playing with the vinyl to represent femininity, the home, clothing, aging, all of that.
Where did you get access to the laser cutter or laser cutter?
I did that at Moore a couple years ago. Um, and I think it's something that I've been pursuing more, but with the pandemic, the maker spaces kind of shut down for a little bit. So I'm gonna find my laser cutting access again, whatever makes sense, or keep
Well,
sneaking back into school.
I think you can just walk up 2 blocks from the new building and go to Next Web.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another detail of the first piece you showed.
Okay. Oh, okay. Any other comments about or before we move on to Claymobile?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Um, so you talked a little bit about your own, in the history of what you've done before, where you've taught in your schooling.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your previous work at the Clay Studio and what
Mhm.
your job here entails, and what you're most excited about.
Yeah, I've been involved with the Clay Studio. First, as a student, I've taken a few classes at the Clay Studio, which has been great. And I've been involved as a teaching artist with the summer camps. I've taught claymation a number of times over the summer.
Mm.
And I've taught your son claymation, which has
Yeah.
been great. And I have also been a teaching artist with the Claymobile. I was teaching in a shelter before COVID, and that was a phenomenal experience. I was co-teaching with Sarah Gallo, who's been a teaching artist for a long time, and got to know the program really well through that, and the processes and the people. And that's when I got to know Nitsa, who's a community engagement studio assistant and teaching artist, and is amazing. And yeah, I've also worked, I work with the program Clay Play Read as a teaching artist, which is a Claymobile program, but it's just a little bit different. It's a partnership with the libraries in Philadelphia, and we bring clay and literacy events to multi-age group settings to families with pre-K children. And we were bringing them to the libraries before COVID. And then Megan Millman Lassiter, who's here also, transitioned that program to being virtual during COVID. And Megan had the job that I have currently before me. So I was a teaching artist under her supervision, and she did a phenomenal job bringing us virtual. So I have a lot of experience teaching Claymobile virtual too.
Yeah, that was amazing how you all shifted the program. And I think at one point we were writing a report for something, and it was like over 500 virtual classes in this
Yeah, it was
environment.
incredible. Yeah. And it was really scary at first, but it was really incredible. And some students were super consistent and just really relied on it,
Mhm.
it was great. We needed it too.
Yeah, as a connection, that was really important. And because we're a small organization and everybody's used to working really hard, I feel like we're good at sorry to use the word pivoting again. I think we should just delete that from
I
the
know.
language, but it's so appropriate. And I heard colleagues at larger institutions were kind of in awe of how fast Claymobile could shift, and some other programming could just go online almost right away.
Yeah.
So I'm in awe of the Claymobile teachers. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing. And Clay Play Read was funded by a big grant, Josie William Penn Foundation.
Yeah, William Penn Foundation.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to note that our development team and Josie Bockelman, who's with us today as usual, are work really hard too to make sure that the it's not just that the standard programs that have been going on for Claymobile get funded, but I know Josie and Megan and now you and all the former Claymobile people really work hard to come up with new ideas. For instance, Clay Play Read being just a new take on how to make sure that students are getting the most that they can. On that note, I will say anyone on the call who's interested in helping us support the Claymobile, Giving Tuesday is coming up in November. It's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So you'll see stuff on our social media. If you'd like to donate, feel free to do that on Giving Tuesday or right now. I'm sure Raymond would be happy to put the donate button in the chat. I might remind you again later. All right, so then I'm going to share my screen again so we can talk a little bit about the history of the Claymobile program and its purpose. So in 1994, Catherine Narrow, who was at the time the managing director, was the one who came up with Claymobile. And the issue was that we wanted to bring students in to teach clay, but the big expense for the schools was to bring the students to the clay studio. So Catherine said, okay, we'll just have to figure out a way to bring the clay studio to the schools. And that's when Claymobile was created. And I think Adrienne has some updated numbers for me. I don't know if the ones on the screen are still accurate. So we were.
Yeah, I have 4,100 students each
Wow.
year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have over 100 partner sites.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that tells you how many, lives this program touches every year. And the work of actually, and we see it every day, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit, Adrienne, about what it takes to physically get the teachers to the sites?
Yeah, it's actually a little unbelievable what we do. We have these amazing vans, and do you have a picture? Okay, yeah. Here's our new vans.
Designed by Raymond Rourke with drawings by Shannon Jones.
So cute. And we carry everything you need to have a ceramic studio, load it into the van. We have carts, we have big plastic trays that stack. We have buckets that we bring sponges, we bring every tool we're going to need. We have the process simplified to teach kids how to make things with, we don't bring a ton of different tools. We bring some simple wooden skewers, and the kids can do so much with it. And we carry everything, drive it all to the school, load it up onto a cart, hope that there's ramps, which Philadelphia, a lot of schools are very old and not accessible in that way. So sometimes we are actually getting student volunteers to help us carry big trays and maybe a couple 100 pounds of clay up the stairs, and we get it all up there and we do it. And it's amazing. And it definitely takes a lot of energy, but it's always worth it. The energy comes right back to us when we're in the classroom.
Yeah. And then you have to bring it back to the clay studio.
Yeah.
Fire it. Bring it back.
Yeah, we fire it. That part where, the kids are always like, what's happening to my piece? Because, we're taking it out of the building. And then if they've never been a part of a Claymobile project before, they get this finished, shiny ceramic object in the end. And sometimes they're just stunned by it because it's so beautiful and so, so permanent. And a lot of times kids' artwork is construction paper that fades or ends up in the garbage. And this is like so permanent, and they've never seen anything. Yeah. And then they're like, can I drink out of this? If it's something functional, can I drink out of it? And we say yes. And they're just amazed. They're amazed that they've made something that's just like something they bought to drink out of or eat off of. And it works the same way.
I think that that's an extra layer of empowerment for kids who, making something that they imagined in their mind is one thing, but actually being able to bring it home and, like you're saying, use it just like something you would buy in the store. So many people really don't understand how things are made, or that you can make something yourself that is actually like a functional object. And when you do it and you use it, there's just such a feeling of accomplishment and wonder. And it actually is quite an important, I don't mean to overstate this, but it's like an important layer of understanding of the world that they really didn't have before in many cases.
No, I agree. I agree. My favorite Claymobile moment as a teaching artist, I was teaching in a shelter, and the students were often just there for a couple weeks or maybe a month, I think, tops. And so we had a student that showed up for several weeks in a row, and she told us that they were moving, which is always great news, and that they had bought a shelf to put her Claymobile work on in their new house.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so great. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna share a little piece of a video that was actually made in 2011, but it's still so very relevant. I'm just gonna show everybody just about 5 minutes of this video. And it really does give you a very poignant view into what is happening when kids get access to the Claymobile. So here we go. Can everyone see this? Yeah. Can you hear the sound?
Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
You can't hear sound.
Maybe try again. I don't, or do the share sound at the top.
Anywhere, there's almost nothing you can express through clay.
I can hear sound.
Students
thank you.
Things together and the way they can put things together when we visit a classroom with certain arts. I felt like my art was being appreciated, that it was being showed off to the public. It's like magic. It's like having an imagination. You're a living community, is how I see it. Not a museum, a place where artists work, students learn, with hands-on opportunities available to people who want their own ability to express their creativity.
The Clay Studio is unusual in that we serve original audience, a national audience, and a international audience.
And since kids love play, our former education director, Catherine Narrow, thought, wouldn't it be great to have classes here? And she thought, why can't we go to the kids instead? And that's how the Claymobile was born. The Claymobile is exactly what you see in its name, the Claymobile. It's a mobile clay unit. So trusty Steve. The basic idea is that everything needed for a ceramics class gets loaded up in a van that's labeled the Claymobile and goes out to different classrooms throughout Philadelphia and some classes in New Jersey as well. Basically, we can work anywhere.
It is our most visible program, and it serves a really important audience, portions of the population that aren't necessarily served.
The need for children to experience the arts, to have the ability to be creatively expressive through the arts is so diminished in our culture. It's really affecting parts of the brains of children. Parts of them are not getting stimulated. For me, education is a justice issue. It's about providing equal opportunity for all children.
We really need to do a much better job in all of our schools to make sure that there's plenty of activities that keep kids engaged.
What's great about teaching with clay is that it's very physical. It's right there. People can sort of tear into it, tear it apart. There's very little prior knowledge required.
The tactile qualities of the material itself are something that children immediately relate to in life.
We're going to make 2 different types of masks. We're going to make one mask with a mold, and we're going to make another mask freehand.
You go and you work with the kids for about 90 minutes, and you're creating one project that will then be transported from the site to the clay studio where we would then
fire all the work in the kilns there.
And then when it comes back, it's just
like a real piece of artwork. Like you just want to show it to everyone in the world.
Our primary objective is to help them to read and write. But if we're not giving them purpose and reason to show up every day in school with things that really fire them up and get their passion going, that they're excited about, they're not going to go to school.
People are really cut off from any kind of real basic process. They don't, know, it's like, well, where does milk come from? You know, I mean, they've never seen a cow. A lot of kids don't realize that the plates they eat off of are made of clay. More pots and clay were made by hand than were by wheel. There's a more immediate gratification of actually seeing something right away with the product of your hands.
I don't know, when I feel the clay, I just get so excited.
And it's just amazing to see when they're given clay and when they're given this opportunity to succeed with it, the things that they're able to create and to see their imagination sort of take flight with it.
Clay is unique because it's a three-dimensional art. When someone squeezes, touches, smooths, pounds clay, it records that movement, and you can fire it and record that movement forever.
The transformation to an object that they've created and affects the students in a way that it kind of goes to their core, to their soul.
When you do something like art and you say to a kid, you have a lot of potential, and the kid takes a piece of clay and they shape it into a piece of art that they're proud of. They see their potential right then and there.
A little girl told me.
Sorry about the sound issue, but I think you still got the gist of it, especially towards the end there. So Adrienne and I wanted to share with you all some of the other programs that the Claymobile takes part in. I don't have a picture, but if you walk by the Clay Studio right now, you can actually see the Claymobile Studio for the first time ever in the front window. And you can see Nitza and Maria and Frankie and everybody, all the Clay Studio Claymobile teachers actually processing the work and getting ready. There's Megan, who's on the call we mentioned, and Raymond and Shannon, Jennifer Martin, Josie, and of course, Obi, who cannot be forgotten. We're gonna have to do an updated photo, but this is when we just recently got the new Vans. We do a Claymobile Creations exhibition every year, and the kids actually coming in and being able to see their artwork in the gallery is pretty special. That's gonna be virtual probably again this January, but once we get into the new building, we'll start them in person again. Adrienne, do you want to explain Claymation?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah, this is some pictures of a Claymation class. We do Claymation with a different kind of clay, an oil-based clay that doesn't dry and can be moved around, and it's colorful. And we shoot the videos with iPads. Now there's a number of great apps that can help us make Claymation stop motion videos, and we have stands and lights, and we set it up and the kids make movies. And it's amazing.
Right. Show people while you were talking.
Yeah. Yeah, they do a lot of creative stuff with it. Sometimes they're like feature films, sometimes they're like 10 minutes long and there's like a whole plot that's like very developed. And then other times they're great projects where they're animating their name, or something like this where they're animating little characters. It's and set to music, and it's another really gratifying process with clay. They get the sculpting process, and they also get that finished product of a movie, of a video. And yeah, this is one other cool thing that we do is sometimes we shoot them on green paper, and then we do green screen backgrounds, which is really fun. But yeah, I've always loved teaching this program, and I'm actually teaching it next week at a high school, which is exciting. We're considering remaking the Fresh Prince intro out of clay.
I was hoping you were going to mention that.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that.
I'm hoping they go for it. It's like such a millennial idea, but I don't know, I'm hoping they
everything old is new again.
Yeah, that's right. The fashion's back at least.
Yeah. Well, and just to note, this series was actually made at Clayfest, and that's a big festival that we do each year. So our teachers even can just be at a table with like hundreds of people coming towards them, and they can still allow each person who interacts to have a really valuable experience, even if you're only standing there for like 15 minutes. So it's really amazing what these mobile programs are able to accomplish.
Mhm.
So then what's next here? We have, you want to talk a little bit about Baro and El Barrio?
Yeah, we've been doing a number of community events that aren't in schools, and this is one of them. NHTSA teaches this program, and NHTSA is able to teach it in Spanish, which is amazing. And community members come out to it. This program is generally older adults, and we have a couple other similar programs happening right now.
Oh,
Do you
like,
have
yeah,
Cesar
I have this.
started? Let's
Oh,
see.
I don't think I grabbed those extra photos.
That's okay. No, yeah, the other community program happening is in Iglesias Garden in Kensington. NHTSA also is teaching that one. She teaches it in English and Spanish. And it's beautiful. It's just an outdoor community gathering. It's fabulous. And Cesar, who's in this photo, is also a clay studio teaching artist, and he's the host of this event.
And he's also on the council for our Making Place Matter exhibition,
Yeah.
which is
Mhm.
going to be the first exhibition in the new building, and he lives in the neighborhood. Here's another library that's close to our new location.
Yeah, this is an in progress shot of a mural that's being installed. I think they may have completed it yesterday, or they're just doing a couple finishing touches. It's on the Kensington Library. And this is Pedro Espina headed up this project, but it was also a community project. The pieces were made by people in the community. So people are already walking by and seeing their piece or their child's piece on the wall. And remembering working with Pedro, and it's just exciting. It's exciting to get the work up in such a public space.
Yeah, giving people the opportunity to see their own work on display is really powerful.
Yeah.
And this is Clay Play Read, which we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Clay Play Read is going to resume in the spring. We're hoping to get it into a community rec center, and also possibly having it at one of the playgrounds in the Kensington neighborhood. And it starts with a read aloud from one of our local librarians, and then we move into a clay project to kind of just talk about the story in another way, make artwork about the story and how the story made us feel. And it's geared towards pre-K, but families often come with older siblings as well. And it's a great family event.
And I think all of these programs really point to something that we've learned. I've learned personally. I think probably a lot of my colleagues already realize this, but that it's one thing to create programs for community and offer them.
Yeah.
To get people to come to the programs is sometimes the hardest part. And then, so the importance of having community organizers helping us do that, to really engage with the local cultural organizations and ask them to help bring people out is really important. Through the Making Place Matter project, which I've been working on, we've been increasing our presence in that neighborhood where we're moving to, South Kensington, for the last 4 or 5 years. And we couldn't expect that people would just immediately come out to us, because we've heard from community members that they don't always trust organizations. They'll get some services or some programs, maybe one thing, and then the organization just leaves. So we've been spending all this time really building trust. And I think that it's something to be noted, because it's not always that you just have to be a good teacher you have to know how to invite people and ask to be welcomed, which is the way that we've kind of captured that.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And having, we're so fortunate. We have the right teaching artists working with Claymobile. We have people who connect, and that's what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. So this might be a hard question, but what do you hope for when we move into the new building? Like, what do you think about the future of Claymobile in this new space?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, off the top of my head, I hope it's like a little bit less carrying things.
Yeah, we're excited about that on for Clayfest
Yeah.
as well, right?
I'm hoping more like easy loading situations, but I think we're all hoping for that. Yeah, I think that we're all excited to be able to have the capacity to make more work, to have the students make more work. I think that is kind of the basis for having the capacity we need to reach more people. We want to get people the opportunity to touch clay and then experience what it's like to have their finished project. And we're going to be able to do that on such a larger scale. And it's so exciting. And I also think that, the work that's been done to connect with the neighborhood is amazing, because we're already meeting new artists and new teaching artists new to Clay Studio. And I think that bringing those voices and that artwork into the Claymobile program as well is going to be really beautiful.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that capacity issue is space and kiln space. And oftentimes we're bumping up against, like, we literally can't do anymore because we only have 2 vans, we only have so much kiln space, and you need to be able to process the work fast enough to get it back to the kids. So
yeah, that's probably the biggest daily collaboration of our staff, is putting work into kilns and prioritizing student work.
Yeah. So, and the fact that we have been able to design the new building, and Josie Bockelman and Jennifer Martin really have working so hard for years now to just like establish what's the best layout, where are the kilns going to be, how are you going to roll the carts in. So there's just so much work that's been going into that for a long time, and it's going to be amazing when we finally walk in the door. So I want to see if anyone else has any questions. I've really enjoyed our time, but we have about 5 more minutes in case there are people who would like to ask a question.
I also see Raymond shared some photos of some of the events.
Oh yeah.
In
Thank
the
you,
chat.
Raymond. Naima's there, but she probably can't hear me, so she can't. Does she want to ask any questions? Anyone want to ask a question?
What are the future plans for the Playmobil? Like, how are you looking to do more and do things differently in the future?
Yeah, right now it is about connecting with schools mainly, because we're deep in the school year now. So it's about making those relationships with more schools who need us. That's a focus of mine right now, because the kids have been virtual for a school year and a half. And it's hard to fathom how much hands-on art making they've been deprived of. So to be able to go into schools and put clay in their hands is so powerful to me. I think that, they're in school all day playing catch up, and they just need that from us right now. So that's my focus, to build more of those opportunities for us to be in our local public schools and other schools as well.
And then Raymond asked if Claymobile will be involved with our after school programs, which is a future expectation. Yeah,
we will be. And I think we're working that out. The the education programs and the Claymobile programs at Clay Studio are really, really close. So we're working out how we're going to collaborate on that, but definitely. That's really exciting too, because when we go out to a school that's local to us and close by, we can tell the kids, you know, where to find us and they can get to us, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, that idea that we can increase the layers of interaction is pretty exciting, especially because there'll also be another thing that is related to Claymobile teaching is that we're excited to integrate hands-on activities directly with our exhibitions. So we have this amazing Claymobile teaching staff. We have amazing teachers in the building. We have exhibitions, and we've really never been able to put those two things together and kind of allow that hands-on programming that you all do so well to reinforce people's, you know, having a meaningful experience in the gallery, and then really going and being able to just immediately kind of process what they saw with their own artwork. So that's another way that we're increasing the layers.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
All right, does anyone else have any questions? No, that's great. Thank you so much, Adrienne. I really enjoyed our hour together, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Don't forget Giving Tuesday. Have a nice day.